In a quarterback-driven sport, there's been no league in the country traditionally that produces better quarterbacks than the Pac-12. We bring in Jack Follman of Pacific Takes on the SB Nation platform to talk Pac-12 quarterback replacements because we've got a number of star-quality guys that have moved on to the NFL draft, and we will see them in just a few weeks on the stage in Chicago. So we bring in Jack to talk about it. Hey, Jack, thanks so much for joining us.
Oh, yeah, thanks for having me.
Good stuff. So let's start at the obvious place to start because Marcus Mariota's name's going to probably be selected in that first two spots in the NFL draft. So Oregon relies heavily on him and has for the past 3 years, and now it's up to a new guy. So how do we stand on that quarterback battle to replace the Heisman Trophy winner?
It's going to be a very interesting one. The most interesting thing about it, I think, actually, is was a lot in the news. Like a month or so ago, they got an FCS star, Vernon transferring in, but he won't be here during the spring, so it's going to be an open competition for a head start for a few of the guys they already have in the program before he even gets there. So that's going to add a really interesting element to see these guys who have been in the program for a while kind of start to duke it out and see if they can get an early grasp on it before Adams comes in. The guys who are going to be competing for it, pretty low names. They weren't big star recruits. They've been in the program for a while. There's Jeff Locke. He was Mariota's backup last year. I think he got in one play in the against Ohio State and got demolished on a hit from what I remember. So haven't seen much of him. Then there's another guy, Morgan Mahalak, who I'm not 100% sure about the pronunciation on that, but he's a similar guy to Mariota who came out of the Bay Area, kind of an under-the-radar recruit. I think only started 1 year in high school, but people loved the way he could run and loved how poised and how clean he is as a passer already. And those are the kind of the two guys who I think are going to compete to get that early shot this spring at being the front runner to be his replacement, which we all know is maybe the toughest job in college football next year.
Yeah, on top of replacing Marcus Mariota, quarterback's the most important position for any football team, and then in that offense you have the pressure of trying to put together those plays and run that offense as fast as anybody in college football. And then on top of all that, once you get through August camp and are named the starter, you're looking at Michigan State in week 2 and a trip out to East Lansing. So that should be very interesting at Eugene. All right, we have a couple other spots open in the North Division, Jack, as you well know. At Washington and Washington State, Cyler Myles, who had a pretty productive season with Washington winning 8 games last year, and Connor Halliday, who threw for a zillion yards before he got hurt and had some of the more crazy numbers you're going to see throwing the football under Mike Leach. Take us through the Washington situation and also Washington State.
Yeah, Washington was definitely a very unique situation where Myles was the starter last year. He put up some pretty good numbers, but everyone kind of got the feeling that, the fan base and the coaching staff weren't really in love with how he played. He kind of underwhelmed when they played better opponents in the Pac-12. So he had the spot. He was kind of, the front runner to get the starting spot in spring, but about a couple weeks ago, it just came out that he is taking a leave from the program, definitely won't be there this year. So now it's open season for spring practice completely. There's going to be a few names they're going to be leading for it. They're both guys who, the two most prominent names right now are both guys that Chris Peterson brought in the last couple of years. And as you know, a lot of times when a new coach comes in, not surprisingly, the quarterbacks he signed suddenly kind of emerge as the guys. There's KJ Carta-Samuels, who redshirted last year, real athletic, kind of a Jake Locker type, big, athletic, big-armed guy. I think ran a lot in high school, so he'll be interesting to see if he's going to be able to get that passing game down that, Chris Peterson's a lot about quick, efficient passes. The other guy to watch out for is he was a senior in high school last year, Jake Browning. I guess he actually finished his senior year of high school football back in November or December. Graduated early. He's from Northern California. He's more of a Kellen Moore type, kind of a shorter 6'1", 185, 190 skinny kid, but who just, I think he broke national records, was California State Player of the Year, I think maybe 2 years, his junior and senior year. He's in there for spring, so he's going to be another guy to watch out for if Peterson, I think, and the staff loves him. But Carta-Samuels is going to be the guy who I think right now is looking at as the leader before practice begins, just because he already has a year in the program and he's got a Pac-12 body to begin with.
Jack Follman joins us from Pacific Takes on the SB Nation platform. And Jack, those Oregon State fans are going to be all over me. I almost forgot about the Beavers replacing Sean Mannion, who I love to watch sling it all over the field with some of the better receivers he's had in the last few years moving on to the NFL. So how do we stand with Oregon State and Corvallis?
It's going to be really interesting. Similar situation to Washington with Chris Peterson in the second year, new coach. So a lot of times that kind of throws through a loop of what you think might be the case. And their only guy who I think has any actual in-game experience is Luke Del Rio. Jack Del Rio's son, I believe was an Alabama transfer. He was the backup to Mannion last year, saw some garbage time minutes, and is kind of the guy who right now, I assume, is going in is going to be the leader to take the job in spring. I mean, as far as we all know, that could be completely open, but right now it looks like Luke Del Rio, who I don't have a ton of scouting on him because I haven't. He didn't sign out of the Pac-12, so he's kind of a an underknown guy out here. And then he saw a little bit of garbage time, so I think Luke Del Rio is the guy to look at for at Oregon State this spring.
I tell you, Jack, it seemed like yesterday that Brett Hundley was running for like a 70-yard touchdown run on his very first play from scrimmage at UCLA, and I believe in his second game they had a big matchup with Nebraska at the Rose Bowl and just tore through the Huskers for like 700 yards of total offense. But the Brett Hundley era over at UCLA, we saw Jerry Neuheisel step in against Texas, and they ran a pretty conservative offense in winning that game, but they let him go up top for the winning touchdown in the last few minutes against the Longhorns. So how do we stand at UCLA?
Going in, I think, based on what we've seen, everyone, for whatever reason, maybe it's because his dad is Rick Neuheisel, maybe he just gives off that, the Southern California surfer guy look and charm, that people don't really take him seriously. But I think I was really impressed when Neuheisel came in and filled in for Hundley in that game at Texas to get the win. So I think that's given him a lot of momentum going into spring to maybe be the front runner for that. But he still can't shake it. It seems like everything I hear from people who talk about it seem to want anyone but him to be Hundley's successor. And the guy who I think a lot of people are going to look at is true freshman Joshua Rosen. He was, I think Scout had him number 1, Rivals might have had him number 1 or 2 around there for quarterback recruits in the class of 2015. Another guy like Browning up at Washington who enrolled early, so he's going to be there for spring. He's a big-armed, polished kid coming out of, I think, St. John Bosco, which is a powerhouse in the LA area. So a lot of people are going to think he's ready to go, be the next Hundley. But with that in mind, it's rare that you see covering the Pac-12, watching it for decades now, you see a true freshman come in and win a starting job. I think Jared Goff at Cal is one that I could remember. But it just so rarely happens that I think Neuheisel might have the inside track. They have one more guy, I think it's Asante Woolyard, who's a redshirt freshman, but I think it's right now everyone's talking about Neuheisel and Rosen.
Arizona kind of had me scratching my head when they made it to the Pac-12 championship game. I think they were probably about the 4th best team in all that. Arizona State has really been a difficult team to measure the last couple of years because when they're good, they're almost as good as anybody in the country, but Arizona State's had a few slip-ups the last couple of years. Don't know what happened to them against Texas Tech 2 years ago in the bowl game. But anyway, Taylor Kelly, of course, a nice run at Arizona State, but he's gone. What are the Sun Devils looking at quarterback?
They got a nice situation where Taylor Kelly missed a few games last year in the middle of the season with an injury, and they inserted a junior, Mike Bercovici, and he lit it up. He was a better just pure passer maybe than Kelly, so they put up a ton of yards through the air, won some big games. I believe he was a starter when they had a big win over Stanford. So right now it looks like he's going to be a senior, so that interesting situation where you have a 1-year senior starter. I think sometimes coaches, try to get away from that. But I think right now Bercovici looks like the guy, and it's going to be just seeing if he's going to be able to be the guy who can hold off some younger recruits and be the guy who can be an every game starter as opposed to a guy who comes in, makes some noise, different ball game when the other schools have all year to game plan against you week after week. So, but in spring, I think it's just to look and see if Berkovici can run with the ones full time and make it happen.
Very good stuff, Jack. Jack Follman from Pacific Takes on the SB Nation platform for Pac-12 football and, of course, the Pac-12. Wow. I rate it as the best conference in college football. I'm not saying it's the best going into 2015, but based on just sheer results against the other conferences, Jack, what I did was a little series where I just went through the Power 5 conference results against each other, and 13-6, and comparing the seeding, I took it all into play. The Pac-12, I believe, had the best results in college football. Would have loved to have seen somebody or maybe a couple teams from the Pac-12 playing the SEC in particular that just didn't match up in the postseason play, but extremely strong football conference you got there.
Yeah, I've been wishing for that for a long time, is some more SEC Pac-12 bowl matchups maybe, or even just some more frequent non-conference matchups, because I do agree that those are probably the two best conferences in college football. I mean, obviously much was made about the SEC having a little bit of a down year last year, but overall, yeah, the Pac-12, I'm glad. It's kind of taken a while for the national media and people around the country, I think, to kind of, the big thing was getting the Pac-12 on ESPN, in my opinion, but to get people to kind of see what was going on in the Pac-12 out here, because there were some down years, probably around 2009, 2010, but it's deep. There's a lot of great coaches, and there's a ton of talent out here, a lot of great quarterbacks, and a lot of systems that not only are really, really good, but really fun to watch. So I'm glad that people around the country are getting a chance to really enjoy it.
You're right about that, Jack. Sometimes it's difficult to find those regional games late at night if you're on the East Coast, but wow, with that ESPN contract, there were some really good games late night in the East where you could see all the better teams in the Pac-12 kicking off at 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. Good stuff. All right, Jack, appreciate the insight and the information, sir.
Yeah, thank you.